G'day guys, what's cracking? Today I thought I would walk you through my thought process when it comes to taking a sunrise photograph. There's lots of videos out there that show you how to do it, but I thought I'd show you how to think about it. And as you can see, hopefully, just here the sun's starting to come up. It's about 5:30 in the morning. I woke up at 5 and I'm staying 5 minutes away from this location. It's Advanced Town, Hinds Dam, which is a massive body of water kind of held by these beautiful valleys of gum trees. Sometimes we get some fog in the valleys and the rifts, which is really beautiful. Other times there's a beautiful golden glow over the water. This morning I knew that this was going to be the forecast, that it was going to be overcast, possibility of rain. So when I woke up in the morning, I stuck my head out and there was no water anywhere, and it was fairly reliable since I'm just down the road. So as a result, I decided to come because it was already up. So the first thing that obviously attracts you is the sky. You come down here and you look at the sky, and we've got this kind of little tear in the sky of gold that's coming through. The sun rises from the east, and that is the east. And then as I look around, just down here, there's a tree trunk, but the light is way too dark at the moment to make the most of that. I'm then looking over here, and there was a little low-lying fog, but it's lifted. And then over here, it's sort of a valley that comes down, and there can be fog lying in there, but this morning there's no fog. Now I also know that there's some boats rocking up. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. Those boats are here to do a bit of fishing, I imagine. So they'll be either small tinnies or kayaks or canoes, and they may offer a great opportunity for some interest in the foreground, because you need interest in the foreground, the midground and the background for a cracker of a sunrise. Now I know today already that I'm not going to walk away with a portfolio piece, but that's not the point. We come out to take photographs and to be part of this because of the creativity of it, because of the excitement. It gets you outdoors, it gets you thinking, and it puts you in a really good headspace. I don't know about you, but all I need to do is pick up a camera and I can move from previous issues and struggles into a different space, which helps me enormously in terms of my mental health over the long run. So the lights are gradually coming up, and what's happened is there's a very early burst of light, and as that early burst of light comes through, you get these beautiful reds and pinks, and then it fades, and then you kind of get another run at it that builds, and it builds to a peak of color, and then it drops off as the sun comes up. That's the timing and the trick of sunrise photography. But already, I don't know if you can see it, but there's some reflection on the water, and I'm thinking that's good. Reflection on the water, that suffices as effective foreground. Just like this log here, but that log here is useless until the light starts to pick it up and starts to make it a little bit of golden. We're on the way to golden hour. It's about another 10 minutes away according to photo pills. If you're ever wondering how you time all this stuff, just use photo pills. I'll put a link in the description below. So what about settings for a morning like this? Well, I usually lock it down to 9, 10, 11 aperture. It does depend on my mood and the way things are set up. Sometimes I'll photo bracket, which means I'll take a photo either of different light shades, if there's a lot of shadow and a lot of light in the picture, and sometimes I'll focus bracket, which means if there's a lot of interest in the foreground and the background and I want to have both in focus, I'll actually focus the foreground, keep the camera in exactly the right position, same position, and then focus in the background. That's a problem-solving technique I implement depending on how the thing looks. It's not something I go out with the intent to do, because it's far more work in post-processing. So I shoot with that sort of aperture. I then have my ISO as low as I can, and this morning my ISO is on 100, but you can go up. The new cameras, they can go up to, 800, 1000, 1250. You wouldn't want to go too much past that, because it does get a bit noisy if you want a really clean, beautiful image that you can stick on your wall later on. For my shutter speed, it just varies, and I know the longer I can have a shutter speed on, in this case, the smoother the water will be, the better the final picture will be. But you may want to chop your water. The water may be chopping up or arcing in a way that you're like, that's beautiful, I just want to catch it because the way the light comes off it. So you need to think through these things. How are you going to use the settings on your camera to determine and make the most of the environment in which you're shooting? Now, another option I have, which I'm probably not going to use, but way over here, here's a photo I took yesterday. There's some cloud that just sits in that valley, but this morning there's not much cloud. Now, what I would normally do in this scenario, if there was clouds sitting and it looked like it was parked for the morning, I'd put on a 70 to 200 and I'd zoom right in, I'd crop right in, nice and neat and tidy. This morning I've got a 20mm on because I'm going to start here. So I might start at a 20mm and then I'll move to a 24 to 70 and then I'll move to more telephoto lenses, on the proviso that there's not something essential that I need to capture now. And there isn't at all, because the light's just gone. Alright, so we're a little while later and there is no sun whatsoever. Now, when there's no sun whatsoever, don't pack up and go home, it's not that bad. Instead, start thinking about things through a black and white lens. What would this look like in monochrome? And if my perception of the screen that I'm looking at is correct, that what you can see in the background is monochrome. What you need to do with monochrome is use the contrast of dark and light to your advantage. But also, in the foreground, remember I was talking about that beautiful log? So we have this log here. So what I've done is I've moved my aperture all the way up to the maximum the aperture will go. Or maybe it's minimum, but the highest number. So on my 20mm, my Nikkor 20mm, the highest aperture is 16, but you don't shoot at your highest aperture because the light diffracts through the lens and makes the image blurrier. So you always go back 1 or 2 stops. I'm shooting on an aperture of 14, and once my aperture's set and I've got my ISO down to let the least amount of light in, I then do an assessment on what sort of shutter speed I need. And you do the assessment by putting it on shutter speed and putting it, moving it up and down until your light meter hits the 0. So you're not overexposed or underexposed. And once you're there, it tells you how long your shutter speed should be. And my shutter speed should be 15 seconds for this particular shot. And I also know that if I shoot with this sort of water at 15 seconds, it'll smooth it out nicely. And this is what I've got, this image. So that's straight out of camera. I shoot raw because I like to enhance the image back to what I can see and what can be really intriguing and enjoyable later on. And so when I'm taking a shot, I'm really looking at how do I take the best in-camera photo that I can that's exposed well, so later on I can draw out the things from the shadows and calm down the highlights that my eye can see, but my camera can't, because our eyes are still far more advanced than the best cameras in the world. And also, is it intriguing enough to draw in? And so you'll notice with this image, I'll put it back up, that leading line of the log should draw you into the photo. I've deliberately positioned the camera so that leading line is at the bottom right hand side of the image and it draws you in. And the thing I've kept in focus is that log, because I want people to stare at the intricacy of that log and then be like, oh, and there's something interesting in the background. So in this case, we're using the background to frame the interest of the log. So this is the camera setup, and what I've done now is I've shrunk the camera down in height. I've reduced its height because I want that log to have more of a central role in the photograph, because it's intriguing, it's interesting, it has great textures on it, there's lots of different options when it comes to looking at it, and because everything else is fairly boring, isn't it? Everything else is like, So what I'm going to do is take that shot. Now you need to realize that as the sun comes up, it reduces the opportunity to have longer exposures quite dramatically. So if you want to reclaim that, you have to use filters. But for the purpose of this video, I'm not going to use filters, because I imagine that there's a bunch of you out there that either don't want filters, don't like filters, or can't afford filters. So we're going to go filter free this morning, and it's okay because you can still do that. So what I'm going to do now is move my camera over here so that it shoots down the length of the log. Now the tripod I'm using allows me to go up and down, and I can tilt the legs to make sure it's nice and steady, as well as use the ball head to ensure that it's nice and stable. And I have spikes on the bottom, and the spikes are good because this ground's sort of muddy. But if you were using on rocks, for example, you're just shooting on rocks, I'd use some claws. So you can see the camera is like that. And if I turn the display on, what I'm going to do now, I don't mind that at all. I'm going to straighten it up, so I'm going to make sure that the horizon leveling in the camera is actually nice and straight, and I'm going to take that shot. So as the morning's unfolded, there's been a flash of colour, and that was it. It was like literally 20 seconds. And there's a little boat just here, just making its way, but it's a bit too far away for it to be of any sort of focus. And there's a wall of trees, dead trees, that create nice little reflection in the water, but it's motoring past them, and you really need something of interest to sit. I took this photo yesterday, and the thing of interest isn't actually the reflection, it's the fog in the reflection. And so you're actually looking for the photo to tell a story, and so it draws a person in. So I'm going to take that image that we shot before, the black and white. I'm going to choose between this one and this one and this one and this one, and I'm going to choose this one, and I'm going to apply a bit of an edit to it. I like them contrasty in black and white. I'm going to retain the textures on that log. I love the way the water sort of lips just over the log. And well, this is the final image for today. The point of landscape photography isn't to take an incredible image. The point is to see beauty and potential in everything before you and apply your creativity to it. But push yourself. What can you get out of it? I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have any other questions, especially about what thinking goes into photography, please let me know. Love to chat with you in the comments below. And if you have other ideas for videos that might be of help to you, put them in the comments below too. Thanks for the subscription and the like on this video. Just give it that thumbs up. Helpful, means more people get to see it and benefited by it. And otherwise, have an amazing week, and I'll catch you next time. Bye. Water maybe whipped up, or maybe sort of arcing. It was a bug. The water may be chopping